Several times recently, I have discussed monastic life as it relates to the local church, Protestant church. Now, I know we don't really have any monasteries. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a Protestant. Well, I've seen Protestant monasteries, Anglican, Lutheran, but I don't think I've ever seen an evangelical monastery. But that doesn't mean we can't learn anything from the wisdom. So today, the first time I talked about monastic wisdom, I think I talked about balance in life. Ora et labora, that is a balance of prayer and labor. And I think I added prayer, labor, and leisure to that. And the second time we talked about the monastic life together, we talked about humility and hospitality. That humility is a virtue and hospitality is something that we should all be gifted at. So today, on the third time that I'm talking about monastic life, I'm going to talk about stability. However, before I start talking about stability, I want to show a brief nature clip. And now it's fall and deer bow season is open for deer hunting, but I want to go back over some of my trail cams from the summer and look at a pair of little fawns growing up and playing in the summertime. I think I'll call this Fun with Fawns. And then I'll be right back to talk about stability. Way back in the 6th century, somewhere around the year 530, Saint Benedict wrote a rule of order for monasteries called, of course, Benedict's Rule. And it is for monasteries, especially Benedictine monasteries. It is something similar to the Book of Discipline for Methodist. Now, in that work, Benedict says there are 4 types of monks. I'm going to go over these, and it may be hard to take, 6th century monasticism and squeeze it into 21st century evangelical Christianity, but if we can do that, there might be something in there useful for us today. We'll give it a try. The first type of monk is the Cenobite. Now, this is the type of monk that is stable, and it's Benedict's favorite type of monk. It's stable, hardworking, gets along with other people, follows the authority of the monastery, the authority of the abbot, and just is part of family life or community life. I'm not exactly sure how to match this with Protestants, but you probably are already thinking along those lines. This might be the churchgoer that is there regularly. They're not always ticked off. There's not much danger of them flitting off someplace else. They tithe, they work, they just enter into the life of community, and when rough times come up in the church, they just stick there and help the church through it. I can see why that might be Benedict's favorite type. The next favored type by Benedict are the anchorites. Now, the anchorites are the hermits of the place. They take training. They are mature Christians. They have been around for quite a while in the church or in the monastery, and they feel led to go out and battle temptation by themselves in their own world, like in a cabin or alongside of a church, in an anchor cell or something. They feel the need to spend their life in prayer. They pray for people. They study the scriptures. These are people we would call prayer warriors, perhaps. They've been around a long time. They've done a lot. They're tired. They've sacrificed for years for the church. They think it's time for somebody else to pick up the slack, and they will spend their time praying for the church and giving to the church, and still be kind of isolated and not into the mainstream of the church. Now, Benedict liked the Zenobites. Benedict liked the Anchorites. Benedict liked the Zenonites more than the Anchorites. But Benedict did not like the Cerebites. The Cerebites were the group of monks that always did their own thing. And they didn't acknowledge anybody superior over them in the rules of the church. And they wouldn't follow rules, and they usually got together in ones, twos, or threes, or fours. They had their own little posse meeting. They might have been hermits that kind of bound together. They might have been just a little group of kind of rabble-rousers. I don't know. Where do you think that would be if we compared it to evangelical Christianity? Perhaps a small group that had their own little Bible study, that kind of went their own little way and didn't really plug into any kind of church, or when they did plug into a church, they did their own thing, didn't follow others very well. Maybe. Maybe not. It may be someplace else that you think they plug in. Or maybe you think there's nothing like the Cerebites in evangelical Christianity. Well, what do you think? Benedict didn't have a whole lot of good things to say, about the Cerebites. But they weren't the worst type of monk. There was one that was worse, and that is the one where Benedict kind of pulled his harshest criticism. They were gyrovags. I can think of a gyro keeping going. That is, they just sort of wandered from monastery to monastery to monastery to monastery, wherever the food is good, wherever the services are good, wherever there's an excitement. They never get plugged in any place. They just keep drifting around every place. They never get to where they grow deep. They never get to where they're helpful to pretty much anybody, not even themselves. They just sort of bounce from place to place to place to place. And Benedict, like I said, he reserved his harshest criticism for them. Well, what do you think? Is 6th century monasticism, does it have anything in common with 21st century evangelicalism? Ouch! I kind of think it does. And as painful and as frustrating as it may make us feel to examine that, maybe there's something in this old document from the year 530 that is good for us to hear today. May God bless you, and God bless me, and help us to both grow into mature, godly Christians in the community.